was 31 years old the first time I spoke in front of more than 3 people, and I threw up immediately afterward. Most people assume I've always been confident because of what I do now, but the truth is, I spent the first 3 decades of my life as a professional ghost. I perfected the art of being invisible. It started in 3rd grade. Mrs. Henderson asked me to read my book report in front of the class. Simple, right? I stood up, opened my mouth, and nothing came out. Literally nothing. The whole class stared at me while I stood there like a broken robot until she finally told me to sit down. That was the day I learned that speaking in public was dangerous. For the next 20 years, I built my entire life around staying silent. Group projects, I'd do all the work and let someone else present. Wedding toasts, I'd write something beautiful and hand it to the best man. Job interviews were nightmares that I somehow survived by applying only to positions where I could work alone. I became really good at being the person who never spoke up. Even when I had the answer, even when I disagreed, even when staying quiet hurt me. Silence became my superpower and my prison. The moment everything changed was during a team meeting at my old job. My manager was explaining a new process that I knew was going to cost the company thousands of dollars because I'd seen this exact mistake at my previous job. But there were 12 people in that room, and I couldn't make myself speak. I watched them approve this disastrous plan, knowing I could have stopped it with one sentence. 3 months later, when the project failed spectacularly and 2 people got fired, I realized my silence wasn't just hurting me anymore. It was hurting other people. That weekend, I Googled how to stop being terrified of public speaking and found something called Toastmasters. For those who don't know, it's basically a support group for people who'd rather die than give a speech, which, according to surveys, is most people. I drove to their meeting location 4 times before I actually went inside. The 5th time, I forced myself to walk through the door. The room was full of the most normal-looking people you've ever seen. Accountants, teachers, retirees, students. Not a single person looked like a natural-born public speaker. That was oddly comforting. They explained how it worked. You start with short, prepared speeches in front of this small, supportive group. Everyone claps for you no matter how badly you mess up. It sounded terrifying and perfect at the same time. My first speech was supposed to be 2 minutes about myself. I practiced it maybe 50 times in my car. I knew every word, every pause, every gesture. When they called my name, I walked to the front of the room and immediately forgot everything. Not just my speech, everything. My name, where I was, why I was there. I stood there for what felt like an hour, but was probably 10 seconds. Then said, "I'm sorry, I can't do this," and sat back down. The room was completely silent. I wanted to disappear forever. But then something amazing happened. The meeting leader said, "That's okay. Standing up and trying is the hardest part. You did great." And everyone clapped. They actually clapped for my failure. I went back the next week, and the week after that. By my 4th meeting, I managed to say 3 sentences before my brain shut down. By my 10th, I gave my full 2-minute speech without passing out. The breakthrough came during my 6th speech, about 3 months in. I was talking about my job, something I actually knew about, when I noticed something weird. I wasn't terrified anymore. I was actually enjoying myself. People were listening, nodding, asking questions afterward. For the first time in my life, I felt heard. That's when I realized the thing I'd been most afraid of, people judging me, laughing at me, rejecting me, wasn't actually happening. Most people wanted me to succeed, not fail. I started speaking up at work. Just small things at first, asking clarifying questions in meetings, sharing ideas during brainstorms. My manager noticed and started asking for my input more often. 6 months after joining Toastmasters, I volunteered to present our quarterly results to the entire department. 43 people. A year earlier, this would have sent me to the emergency room. I was nervous, sure, but it was a different kind of nervous. Excited nervous instead of terrified nervous. I knew I had something valuable to say, and I finally had the tools to say it. The presentation went well. Really well. People came up afterward to tell me they'd never realized how much I knew about our systems. My manager pulled me aside and said she was considering me for a promotion that would involve regular presentations to executives. A year ago, that conversation would have made me quit on the spot. Instead, I said yes. That promotion changed everything. Not just my career, my entire relationship with my own voice. I started speaking up in all areas of my life. I gave a toast at my sister's wedding that made people cry. I defended a friend who was being treated unfairly. I even started a podcast, which still makes me laugh because the old me would have rather moved to another country than record my voice. I'm not saying I'm fearless now. I still get nervous before big presentations, and there are situations where I choose to stay quiet. But now, it's a choice, not a reflex. The most surprising thing I learned is that most people struggle with this. Even the ones who seem naturally confident often told me later that they were terrified too. We're all just pretending to be braver than we feel, and somehow that makes it easier. If you're someone who stays quiet when you should speak up, who has ideas but never shares them, who knows the answer but won't raise your hand, I want you to know something. Your voice matters. What you have to say is valuable, even if you don't believe it yet. You don't have to join Toastmasters, though I'd recommend it. You don't have to give TED Talks or become a professional speaker. You just have to start somewhere. Maybe it's speaking up once in your next meeting. Maybe it's leaving a voice message instead of a text. Maybe it's just saying hello to your neighbor. The fear never completely goes away, but it gets smaller every time you face it. And eventually, you realize that your voice isn't something to be afraid of. It's something to be proud of. What would you say if you weren't afraid to say it?